Hey guys, here we are today with two of FitMC's videos regarding the 2B2T server that has existed since 2010. First, we're going to watch the history of the Dragon Egg, and then we're going to have a look at the history of the Kings. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and the original link is down below. Also, let me know in the comments what you'd like me to watch in the future, and stay tuned for some actual gameplay.
The Dragon Egg. In every single Minecraft world, there is only one. If the egg is lost or destroyed, it's gone forever.
We lost ours.
To get it back. Well, what if I told you that on the oldest anarchy server in Minecraft, the Dragon Egg still exists? Despite the server being a decade old, the egg has managed to survive.
That's so cool.
But it almost didn't. The chaotic journey the Dragon Egg has taken on 2B2T is quite an unusual story. From the egg first being found, to its eventual use in exploits and as a weapon. You heard that right, a weapon. I have a lot of explaining to do today. So let's get started. When 2B2T began back in December of 2010, the Dragon Egg didn't exist yet. This is because the End Dimension and Ender Dragon were not
didn't
added
exist
to Minecraft until late 2011. By the time Minecraft entered its 1.0 release phase, including the dragon fight, 2B2T was already almost a year
weird
old.
All the
In
things look
Minecraft
when there's that many
world,
people.
The End could be found by entering a portal in one of the 3 strongholds located near a world spawn region. Well, on 2B2T, the chunks where the strongholds were supposed to be had already been generated, meaning that the strongholds and their portals were missing. Players began asking the server's admin, Housemaster, if he had any intention of adding the portals. He said no. It seemed that House insisted that 2B2T continue on as normal without admin interference and without an end dimension. But when you
give the people what they want,
no rules, players will always find a way to accomplish a goal, especially one as lucrative as illegally entering the end dimension.
Yeah.
Near the end of 2011, 2B2T was backdoored, giving select players access to every single block in the game, including end portal frames.
Nice.
Pop Bob and Police Mike were among the first players to obtain the blocks. They traveled to the most established spawn base at the time, the NFE, and attempted to activate a portal deep underground. However, when they inserted the Eyes of Ender into the portal frames, nothing happened. They believed that House may have disabled end portals entirely, so they gave up on entering the dimension and abandoned their portal.
That's sad.
Progress would stagnate for a while, until March of 2012, when longtime 2B2T player XCC2 came into possession of a stack of portal frames. XC believed that a Stronghold's portal room had to be recreated block for block in order to make the portal activate. So he went to the NFE and built an exact replica of a Stronghold's portal room underground, not far from where Pop Bob and Mike's failed portal was. XC invited Police Mike to help him finish the replica portal room. After placing all the blocks correctly and inserting the Eyes of Ender into the frames, to their surprise, the portal ignited.
That's insane.
Pop Bob and Mike's original portal was not aligned properly, so nothing happened when they placed the eyes. Sounds like a funny situation, but remember that end portal frames as a block were not obtainable in survival, so tutorials on how to create portals were basically non-existent in 2011 and early 2012.
These guys.
Still in shock that the portal worked,
you would be.
XCC2 and Police Mike stepped in and became the first players in 2B2T history to generate the end dimension. After standing around watching the dragon fly, they realized that they had jumped into the portal without the proper gear to fight. So they jumped off the end island so that they could prepare. XCC2 invited his friend JDW9966 to help him slay the dragon. Armed to the teeth, XC and JDW entered the portal once more and fought the dragon. After a hard-fought battle, the dragon was defeated.
Well done.
XCC2 didn't really know about the dragon egg, so he left the end after the battle was over. but JD managed to grab the egg before leaving. And this is where the long journey of 2B2T's Dragon Egg begins. In the months following the death of the Ender Dragon, many other portals were built at bases all around 2B2T. House had been inactive for several months, so all of these things were happening without his knowledge. When he finally returned and realized that the end had been generated illegally, he became furious. He began
well, you said nothing's illegal.
Deleting every end portal that had been created, and began removing portal frames from player inventories. He also deleted all the end stone that had been brought back from the end and placed in the world. And he made it so that any end stone that got placed would instantly vanish from here on out. A plugin was also installed so that right-clicking on a portal frame would make it disappear. Finally, House went in and completely deleted 2B2T's end dimension.
If you really didn't want it that badly, but you said nothing's illegal, then what's the problem?
The end had been hard reset. When it came to the egg, House had no idea who was in possession of it. He didn't have time to manually check every single player's inventory. He figured that it would get lost or destroyed on its own. House's reasoning was that, well, there was only one dragon egg. It's likely to have already been lost. Well, unknown to House, the egg still existed, and there wasn't just one.
Oh.
Remember when JDW took the egg from the original dragon fight? Well, in the months that followed, JD had been duping it. In early Minecraft, it was possible to use pistons to make copies of any block that was affected by gravity, such as gravel or sand.
Oh my god.
The dragon egg happened to be affected by gravity as well, and duping machines were used to make multiple copies of it. Hundreds of eggs were being produced each day and distributed amongst the elite players of 2B2T. By the time House went on his rampage destroying all traces of the original end, thousands of eggs were already in circulation without his knowledge. Despite there being thousands of eggs, the end dimension was still off limits to the player base. XCC2 got into contact with House and suggested to him he go to the spots where strongholds should have generated on 2B2T's map and use the /regenerate command in order to create fresh chunks that would include strongholds and portals.
Yeah, well,
House actually listened and created the portals in the proper locations.
Good man.
He formally reopened the end.
Why you didn't let that happen initially is beyond me.
I, Tristan, Talo, and a few others went in and killed the second Ender Dragon. Talo was given ownership of the second egg, which, like the first egg, would be duped into oblivion. From 2013 to 2016, massive piles of eggs began to show up in random places all over the map, likely being dumped by players that had too many of them. During this time, it wasn't uncommon for new players to stumble upon large piles of them while escaping spawn. By this time, both JDW and Talo's eggs had been duped so many times that the originals could no longer be identified.
Yeah, I mean...
So I guess, in a way, you could say that both the original eggs had been lost at this point. House installed a plugin that made it so that having dragon eggs in your inventory would cause them to turn into stone. This plugin would be turned on and off throughout the years, depending on whether House felt like it or not, so it was never successful in preventing the spread of dragon eggs. For a time, nothing really changed regarding them. End portals were often griefed. 2B2T could go months at a time without proper access to the end dimension. At one point, the only way to get in was using private portals still left over from the plugin days. Regardless, dragon eggs remained a fun novelty and collectible item. But then, the YouTube invasion of 2016 began, and the server underwent massive changes that bring us into the next chapter of the Dragon Eggs journey. In the summer of 2016, when war consumed the entire server, it was a time of exploits, chaos, guerrilla tactics, and griefing. Bases were falling every single week.
Jeez.
Well, at some point during the summer, it was discovered that the Dragon Egg had a unique use that no other block in the game could do: destroy bedrock. From what I understand, if you had a redstone circuit that stretched all the way out to an unloaded chunk and had a Dragon Egg above a redstone torch, pushing it with a piston would cause it to delete the block directly under the torch, including bedrock. Players would
Whoa.
use this technique to delete illegal bedrock that had been placed by players years previously.
That's so cool.
This included the Bedrock Comet, Pyro's bedrock placed in the center of Wrath Outpost, and Jack the Ripper's bedrock foundation at the original Space Vault. The Dragon Egg went from a novelty to a weaponized griefing tool. After word got out about the exploit, House temporarily brought back the plugin
someone's
that
built
turned
a
eggs
swastika.
into stone blocks. But the damage had been done. Replicas of the very same egg JDW had claimed years previously had been used to grief something that used to be considered ungriefable. Eventually, the eggs would return to just being a fun novelty and trophy, and nothing more. That brings us to today. The Dragon Egg is still widely distributed amongst the 2b2t community. Currently, the Dragon Egg has no real use in Minecraft, but should the developers give it a use of some kind, there's no telling what ramifications it could have on 2b2t, considering just how many eggs there are.
Right?
It's fun to think about. The Dragon Egg on 2b2t
The endless
was
possibilities.
smuggled out of the end illegally, duped countless times, and was eventually used as a tool of destruction. Only on 2b2t could a single egg have a history like this. I hope you learned something today.
Oh, I sure did.
Well,
I hope you
anyway,
guys did
that's
too.
it. Who was the king of the oldest Anarchy server in Minecraft? Sounds like a ridiculous question, right? How does
I mean, not
somebody
really. It's just one that I've never really
rule a
considered
Minecraft
before.
server that has no rules? Well, when you've had hundreds of thousands of players over the years, there's bound to be a few that desire power, influence, and attention here on 2b2t. Today's video focuses on two individuals who
Yeah, don't
both
forget to
called
like and subscribe
themselves the king
to me and this
of
channel.
2b2t
Link for the
at one
original video
point.
down below.
One's journey ended in disaster, and one went down as a 2b2t legend. There's a lot of history to cover today.
So let's find out
let's
all
get
about it.
started.
Yeah.
When looking at the 2b2t timeline, everything that I discuss in today's video takes place between 2010 and early 2016, as this is the
Jeez.
only time in the server's history where the player base was small enough to come to a consensus on anything.
Fair
The
enough.
first person to ever call himself king of 2b2t was a 2011 player named Chris Lighton. Old players recognize this name instantly because of what happened to him. His story serves as a cautionary tale.
I mean, I'm an
to
old
all
player
new
too, but I just wasn't
players.
really involved
So
in
if you are
servers.
new to 2b2t, you should pay close attention to this one. Chris Lighton was your quintessential 2b2t player. He was toxic, enjoyed griefing, and was all around obnoxious.
Classic.
He would constantly spam the following phrase in chat: Chris Lighton is the king of 2b2t. And that last part, I'm sure you can fill in the blanks. But he spammed this phrase non-stop. And back in 2011, the /ignore feature did not exist yet.
Oh,
So
that's
players
rough.
were forced to read these messages day in and day out.
Spam, spam, spam.
Just to get him to shut up. The player base at the time humored him and told him, "Yes, Chris, you are the king of 2b2t." And of course, it went to his head.
As it would.
He became one of the biggest griefers of 2011. He griefed spawn bases and took spawn killing so seriously that it was
Whores.
borderline obsessive. Some say that the 2b2t tradition of killing new players started with Chris. Back in 2011, instead of having a
Oh my
random spawn
God.
location within a certain radius of 0, everybody would spawn in the exact same spot. Chris was notorious for pouring lava over the entire area, burning new players alive instantly.
Oh my god.
Players that originally made fun of Chris for trying to be the king actually began to respect his dedication to making life on 2B2T miserable.
I mean, you really would,
for new
otherwise you wouldn't be able
players.
to play.
When he wasn't busy killing these new players, Chris actually did work on some projects. He was one of the first people to dig out tunnels near the nether ceiling. He actually helped dig out the early parts of what is now the infamous X Highway to the world border. Chris was the most notorious player of 2011, and he had achieved fame and notoriety on the server. He had obtained all the attention that he desired. But all of this attention came at a cost.
Yeah.
Some players had grown so sick of Chris that they wanted to make him leave the server forever. After doing some basic research, the players discovered something shocking: the true identity of 2B2T's self-proclaimed king. It turns out that Chris Lighton was not just a Minecraft username. Chris Lighton was his actual name.
Oh my god.
Chris had doxed himself
Why?
by using his real name as his Minecraft
Why?
name, and the toxic player base of 2B2T took advantage. He was harassed to the point of
You were just
quitting the
asking
server.
for it. Oh my god.
This event would unfortunately set precedents for many more incidents like this to happen over the years, and is part of what gave 2B2T the reputation of being the world's worst Minecraft server. Chris had come to 2B2T begging for attention, and unfortunately for him, he got it tenfold.
Calm as a
Chris's
bitch, eh?
story is a cautionary tale for new players about why it's important to keep your personal details to a minimum when dealing with 2B2T. After Chris left the server for good, there would be many copycats throughout the years that would try and copy Chris's style and persona, even going as far as using his exact same messages in chat. But it wasn't
For
until
real
a few
copycats.
years later until the next contender for king came along. Someone who I would argue came closest to being an actual king of 2B2T. Pyrobyte, the most legendary 2B2T player of all time, regarded by most old players as the true king of 2B2T. How did he get this reputation? Well, similar to Chris, originally, Pyrobyte was seen as an obnoxious player, but unlike Chris, Pyro was an actual computer hacker. He was able to make his own hack client and exploit the server in ways that had not been done before. In 2013, using a backdoor, Pyrobyte together with iTristan teleported to the world border, becoming the first
Oof, my
players
phone
on
just got a
2B2T
message.
to see it with their own eyes. Pyro was also one of the creators of 2B2T's super weapons, the 32K items. Much like his predecessor, Chris, Pyro himself enjoyed griefing the spawn region and started the trend of naming withers after himself. He would name all of them. Pyrobyte is the king of 2B2T. He spawned them all over. I personally can remember New Year's Eve of 2014 going into 2015. I was on 2B2T that evening before heading out for festivities, and while I was playing,
As you would.
I was greeted with this sound. Pyrobyte spawned about 50 withers in the span of about a minute, all of them named after himself. Pyrobyte was also known to mess around on the nether roof before the plugin existed that kicked players off of it.
Oh, right.
Being a member of Valkyria, he established good relationships with the player base at the time. He would be a part of many bases in his time, but his leadership abilities truly began to shine when he was selected as one of the leaders of Asgard 2, the largest group base on 2B2T in 2015. Since the majority of the active player base lived at this base and saw Pyro as a true leader, most took Pyro's claim of being king as fact. He was a powerful player with backdoor access, but never used the access maliciously.
Yeah, which is really nice.
Of course, like any ruler in real-life history, he was not perfect. While posting screenshots in a group Skype chat, Pyrobyte accidentally leaked the coordinates of Asgard 2. Pyro knew that his favorable reputation would suffer if the truth got out. Nobody could know that Asgard 2 was his fault. So he decided to hide the truth. His accidental leak was so well hidden that even I didn't know about it until years later. In fact, me finding out this revelation is part of what made me want to make this video in the first place, now that we finally know the truth behind Asgard 2. But telling us all that a coordinate leak had happened and that griefers were on their way, Pyro knew that if he could channel the base's energy and anger at something, it would make it easier for people to move on from Asgard 2. All of this would culminate into the creation of the third incursion at Spawn. Since Pyro felt bad about causing Asgard 2 to fall, he wanted to give the base members a memory that they would never forget. So using his powerful repertoire of items, he utilized infinite blocks to help build one of the most famous structures in 2B's history, Wrath Outpost.
Hells yeah.
Pyro proved his leadership abilities by turning what could be seen as a tragedy into one of the most positive experiences players had on the server. I still look back fondly at those times. In early 2016, Pyro quietly left 2B2T for good. In the community, there's this running joke that you can quit the server at any time, but you can never leave. Pyro is the exception to this rule. He deleted his GitHub and most traces of himself on the internet.
Whoa.
He left the world of 2B2T
Ghosted.
behind forever, and very few have heard from him since. The only active player on 2B2T that still has ties to Pyrobyte refuses to give up any details about him.
Yeah, why would you?
I can't say I blame him. Pyrobyte is the closest 2B2T has ever had to an actual king. He had immense power on the server, yet showed restraint in using it. He had the respect of the majority of the 2B2T player base, with most actually referring to him as king.
That's so
If you
sweet.
want my opinion, I'd tell you that yes, he was the king of 2B2T. While there have been countless copycats of both Chris and Pyro over the years, none of the players could back up their claims of being the king. Now, with the player base being so large and divided on a multitude of issues,
I mean,
having the community
yeah,
agree
250
on someone
players is a lot of
being
people
king
on a
is
server.
borderline impossible. The era of kings on 2B2T is long gone, but it makes for an interesting memory and a very interesting story.